All right, good people. Let's see. I'm gonna count this week, y'all. One thousand, two one thousand, three
It
one
wasn't me
thousand.
this time. I couldn't I couldn't hear you at first, but I'm happy you were here. You know what I mean? What
Hi,
do
if
we
you
got?
couldn't hear
What
me,
we
how
got
you know I
going
was
on?
talking? How you know I was talking?
Man,
If you could.
I just know you. You start smiling and you start grinning and stuff, and then boom, I'm like, yeah, he talking slick. You know what I mean?
Oh, Lord have mercy.
One of these days, I'm just gonna pop up and just do this whole joint just like this. You
Yo,
know?
that would be fly.
Yeah.
Maybe you know what I'm saying. Maybe we'll
Nah,
tap
man.
into a whole new audience.
Whole new audience. Yeah, the people who be like, I don't want to look at Rob anyway.
Oh God.
They be like, yo, that dude won't get a haircut. No,
Nope.
I'm on strike.
Yeah. What's going on, my guy?
Hey man, I'm out here kicking, kicking and pushing and pulling um, and reflecting, and I was going through some pictures, and it's crazy sometimes in the type of work that we do,
Yep.
and in the work for those who don't think about it, outside of just this, but just impacting other people's lives and being a positive influence and being brothers who have been doing these types of things, whether directly or indirectly, our entire lives.
That's
Where
a fact.
I was paying attention to some folks who had some stories, and not to knock their stories, but sometimes we highlight the people who were able to make a U-turn in their life and correct and make a course correction more than we highlight the people who've been doing their best to do it the right way the whole time. So as I was looking through my photos, and I was like, man, it's like hundreds of these people up in here. If you think about the folks you've dealt with and people you've impacted, and it's like, man, just imagine when you get to them like 70s and 80s, and people like, yo, it was Jamal who coached me to go here, and you know, it was Jamal who gave me a fade at in the
Yeah.
bathroom at the hotel.
That's right.
You
It's the
know,
little things. I'm telling
it
you,
is the
man.
little things.
I remember. I remember at a leadership conference,
Hmm.
and we responsible for a bunch of young Thundercats, and they
Hmm.
got a lot of potential, but they're not ready for prime time. I literally remember, and I'm not saying this to bring any grandiosity to my name or any accolades or anything like that, because it
Hmm.
was it was in the moment, and people have done it for me, which
Hmm.
is why it was recognizable, and I could acknowledge what needed to be done when I paid it forward. But one time I paid it forward, man, um, you sign people up. I got a young brother. He was a lot of potential, very smart,
Hmm.
but he didn't have the proper attire. So
Hmm.
you going in your closet, man. I literally remember. All right, we're gonna eliminate this excuse. I'm going in
Hmm.
my closet, right? He, if I'm gonna be on point, you're gonna be on point. You're not gonna be not on point, and I'm around, right? You
Yep.
know, and it's that type of energy, man. That I heard somebody put it to me like this. He said, "Yo, when you go to a restaurant and you get uh excellent service, right?
Hmm.
The waiter or the server that's taking your order and bringing you your food. Um, do you ever remember that person's name?" I was like,
Mm.
nah. He said, think about that. He said,
Hmm.
it but think about the impact of that person on your experience.
Hmm.
But
Word.
typically when you provide top-notch service, right?
Hmm.
It's not about you, the server. It's about, right?
Mm.
Because that's inconsequential. It's
That's an
making
awesome point.
yeah, it's making sure that the person who is receiving the service gets what they need, right? And,
Hmm.
and
That's an awesome thing.
Nobody remembers the name, but they always remember the service. They always remember
That's
the experience. You know what I'm saying? And I was like,
that's
yo,
an
that
awesome
is
thing.
so true, man. That's so true. I didn't come up with that, right?
No, that's
But
a that, but that's an awesome point though. That's a
yeah,
very, very awesome point. You know, it's like, hey, the person made it about you. It's not that you're forgetting about them on purpose, right?
right,
But the person made you feel like you were at the top of the world. They took care of you. They did the best that they could to get you to where you needed to be.
right.
Now that's
And
cool.
as a result, right, you gonna go back to
Hmm.
that restaurant. You going back.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And whether you remember that service name or you remember the service and you coming back to the place that provides you the need that you
Hmm.
had, right? So as individuals out there, people in service, right? Remember it's about the service, it's not about you. Um the humility that it takes because we're often um n- faces and names that fade, right? But the service is
Yeah.
is important. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm.
that's what's
Sometimes you don't get the glory, but your
uh,
impact was felt,
right,
right?
right,
And the crazy thing is, I don't know how other people who serve others feel, but like sometimes, like I'm guilty of that at times. Like you may not see the photos, you might not see the videos, but there's probably a bunch of people over the past almost 15 years, or let's say 17, that would say, yo, I remember that tall guy who had mad jokes came in here, like, yo, he really dropped some gems on me.
right.
Like, man, when I was in high school, when I was in grammar school, like when them folks were doing whatever they were doing, I could definitely see that. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah. So um remember the service, right?
Mm.
And it's always, and then even in management, right? Even if you're in
Hmm.
leadership within the corporate industrial complex, it's really important for anybody in leadership or in management, especially that the top 15% of any of your performers are going to get the recognition and the accolades, and then
Hmm.
the bottom 15% are going to get all of your attention and your support, right, to get them,
Hmm.
or you managing behaviors or performances, like you got to pay attention to that. However, it's the people in the middle, right,
Yeah. That can
that
make or
are
break it.
that's consistent, that you don't
Hmm.
have to, right, you can't forget them. You know what I'm
No.
saying? Because they
Yep.
provide a value that you can depend and trust on, and as the steady contributors go, so goes the organization, and
Hmm.
you're managing growth through filling the gaps on that bottom 15%, and then also managing the outliers at the top side of it as well on the top 15%. So yeah, that's another part of, and that brings us, man, we have to start to insert and interject servant leadership and the principles of it into this conversation. So, welcome to the Level Up Past Corporate Trauma, a
Hmm.
podcast where we talk about all things corporate trauma. But not only do we dive into the murky waters of corporate trauma, we
Hmm.
also talk about the leveling up. Why? Because you can't stay there, right?
Because you
Uh,
can't stay there.
you can't stay there. So the service, the servant leadership
Hmm.
culture and principles and behaviors is now being asked for more and more within the corporate industrial complex. Things that we talked about before: the great resignation, the lack of operational leadership, the lack of training for management, and then some of the other things. Great episode last week with
Hmm.
uh, with our main man Leroy Muhammad, with the
Hmm.
25 point CEO checklist, how to gauge when you're ready to leave your job. Like these
Hmm.
things, man, we got to get into it, but we just can't stay there. So I'm really excited about today's conversation, man. Rob,
Yes.
It's just you and I. We getting ready for, you know what I mean, to take a break.
Mm-hmm.
And all of you who are listening, we getting ready to take a break. Um, Obviously to be respectful of
Mm-hmm.
everybody's practices and wishes during this season. And we're gonna be coming back at you bigger and better when we come back. So
Mm-hmm.
but yo, Rob,
What up?
the corporate trauma survey.
mm.
What is that? I'm glad you asked me. Hey, it's a
Or,
real quick barometer check on your corporate trauma indicators, right? I meet a lot of
mm.
people, we meet a lot of people, and they're intrigued by corporate trauma, but we have to like explain what it is before they can really commit to whether or not they understand or feel it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can see it, like I can see you coming from a mile away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that person, yeah, it's something going on. But it is our job to kind of help frame your
mm-hmm.
thinking and convince you that yeah, corporate trauma is something that you should definitely and commit to understanding and admit that you have experienced it. So man, we've
Mm-hmm.
come up with a real easy, intuitive way to kind of understand what that looks like. Um
Okay. Okay. Okay.
hey,
The
look,
people
and,
waiting.
this is hot off the press, right? Right. Rob has never taken the corporate trauma survey. So um even though my man Rob is in a great place professionally, so you know we're not gonna put it out there like this is something that he's dealing with right now, right? But so I'm
Man,
gonna frame
listen.
these questions, you know, slightly different, right,
Mm-hmm.
Rob? You know, by saying have you ever, not are you currently, because we don't want nobody to get the wrong idea. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, man, it's on them how they feel. You
I
know,
got
like
you.
listen, I run my own race. I run my own race. Like
I hear
I
you.
can't. But okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. Let's see.
All right, all right, all right, all right. So everybody out there, you get your pens and pads ready. You can write the question down, but really listen to the question and pay attention to your most instinctive and answer. Most instinctive answer. Listen to your first mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, question number one,
Number
Robert.
one,
You ready?
come on, I'm
Have
ready.
you ever, past, present, or future, suppress your professional position or personal opinion at work in fear of getting fired or disciplinary actions?
um. Yes, yes, yes. I
Oh,
have.
okay, okay, okay.
I have. I have. I have. Now, yes, I have. But I be having some hot lava, man. So for me, it's a situation where I don't always know. Some things that I say aren't always taken with the best intentions. Like when people hear me say certain things, and no matter how nice the smile is, right? No matter how nice I might be, people hear me say certain things. That thing is personal, like, and I'm like, hey,
But
this shouldn't even matter.
has it ever been
Yeah,
inappropriate? Like this is unprofessional. I can't say that I want to body slam this dude right now. You haven't
I
really,
don't say that. But I do. I think it.
but you ain't, but you've never suppressed that to the point where like that's not a that's of course you ain't gonna go that far. I'm talking about your professional, right, position on something
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or
You
a
know what? And I
personal
and
opinion like I don't want to I really don't think we should be engaging in such and so forth because this is how I feel, right? Have you ever been in a
oh,
situation like that
yeah.
and
Listen,
you
the
suppressed
world.
it?
Yes, I have, and I think sometimes people just have to be honest. It's one of those situations. The more inclusive the world become, there's going to be something that may not always vibe, or you may not always vibe with initially. Aware enough about what's moving around you. So, and I'm walking on two different eggshells.
Yep.
You can you might suppress something business related
Yep.
because you're like, hey, this might put someone else on the spot or make someone else look bad. I don't know if I want to go about that. Not just because I don't want them to look bad, but I don't want it to blow back on me.
Right. That's
Then
the
on the
point.
then on the flip side, it could be something cultural where it's more or less about my personal beliefs. And is this something that I want to bring to the workplace?
Yes.
And sometimes people got to be able to recognize where whether it's going to be something that's discriminatory, like about discrimination, or is it something that can be a growth point
Right.
where we got in the workplace some of these things we got to be able to speak about, and before people are canceled, we work with them if that's available.
Excellent point. Because I don't care what it is, at work, your place of business, even as a business owner or an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, the fact that you have a professional position or a personal opinion and you
Yeah.
don't feel safe expressing that, that's a
Hmm.
problem, right? I'm not saying anything goes, right? I don't want anybody to get me wrong. I know, Rob, I know you understand what I'm saying, but I don't want
Yeah.
anybody to get anything wrong. But even things that are hypersensitive in certain, like there should be a mechanism, right, that people can express those things and work through it in a way where it is safe. It may not be necessary for it to be out in the open, but is it
Right.
safe? Like, I really don't feel comfortable with the fact that all of our employee engagement outings are surrounded by happy hour. Like, that was a big thing in the past, not as much right now, but like people go
All
out
right.
to work and bond, right?
But
what if
that
there's what if there's somebody in the group, right, that
it doesn't like that.
doesn't like that religiously, right? Or
Right.
they may have had an issue with substance abuse in the past, and they just don't. That's just not the environment that they need to be in for them to feel productive in their personal life. But I
So,
gotta go. Like, I know I've gone places that I don't normally frequent
yep.
for the sake of a team outing,
Uh huh.
just because I don't want to be disrespectful to the leadership who, put the money out and invited all the staff. But I really don't rock over there. I don't do that. You know what I'm saying?
So, right now, my examples,
Uh-huh.
if I are being suppressed, right? So, prime example,
Okay.
race in the workplace,
Yep.
right? We've gotten to a race, whether it's we're talking about folks' ethnicity, whether we're talking about racial tension, whether we're talking about cops, whether we're talking about politics, whether we're talking about the different sexes, whether we're talking about sexuality,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
All of those things, the statement that you made about there has to be a way to deal with it, right? So even when we're talking about corporate trauma and we're talking about the history of America, I am very, very conscious of this one thing. Two things can be true. You can be an awesome person and a racist. People might not believe it
It's
because
complicated.
you might not. The person might only be racist towards Jamal, and it may have only happened one time. Everybody and everybody else that this person has ever interacted with has never seen that side,
Hmm.
right?
Until
Things are so much more complicated, and I
yes,
think at
very
some point in
complicated.
time, realistic, where it's like we need to get to a point of understanding and then in testing what we push towards understanding. So it's one of those situations where it's like, hey, some folks may have a difficult time with LGBTQ plus, right? And the idea of what that means on society. Before you cancel, this person, before you get rid of this person, you move towards understanding, seeing how if there's a way to bridge the gap, right? Because
Right.
ultimately, if you can bridge the gap, now you have an ally.
Right.
And it's the same thing with race,
Yep.
right? So now you look to gap compared to I need to get rid of you because the person doesn't go away. We not like like throwing people off the bridges,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
We ain't pushing people off. So it's one of those situations where let me move towards understanding. Let me get to a place where we may not agree on what's accepted, but we can agree on how we operate with
Yes.
each other, right? And I think
Facts.
that's the piece. And I'm saying that from a person who sits in a marginalized group, right? Born
Right.
into a marginalized group.
Right.
So it's
Right.
one of those situations where it's like, yeah, unless we talking life or death, because if we talking life or death, push them off the bridge. Like push them off, push them off.
Uh
But
oh.
if we're
We got another. We got another. Hold up. Hold up. Hold up. Hold up. we got another. We got another Robert Felder hashtag. Life or death.
push
Push
them off.
hashtag. Push him off the
Listen,
bridge.
push them off the bridge. But if it's not that, is there a teachable moment there?
Yeah.
Some people you realize based upon what they've been doing, there's no moment for teaching.
Yes.
And I'll leave you with this last piece. Some things you have to move people aside for. And regardless of how you feel about oh my goodness, the congresswoman from the Bronx, I believe, Ocasio, I'll mess her name up. I'm not even about to try. I'm not. I'm gonna
Cortez.
mess it up. Cortez. Yes, right. She got a couple of different names, and I'm gonna mess it up. But she's very cool. She's very committed to her cause.
Right.
Now there's another one of her colleagues that pops up and puts out this animated video of I think her being killed. Now at some level, there's no real moment of hey, maybe we can learn or grow past this,
You can't come back from
right?
that.
Some things are intentional because some things come with consequences and repercussions. Because the only thing that he can say on the backside of something actually happening to her, I never expected or wanted that to happen to her. I'm sorry. And I always tell folks whether it was we're talking about the COVID vaccine and if things went wrong, sorry isn't enough when someone's life is on the line. Sorry isn't enough when you're going to ruin someone's career. So I think sometimes we just got to really take a step back
Yeah,
and
we got to
figure out
dig
how
in.
we can grow.
We
Yep.
got to dig in that and see. That's
Yeah.
why, and where there's conflict in disagreement, right?
Hmm.
But maturity and deliberative dialogue is how
Hmm.
you bridge the gap, right? And how you grow and how you make allies out of enemies, like that whole thing. And
Hmm.
I love your point on understanding. So the question that people should ask themselves, is there ever really a reason to suppress your professional position, right? Or your personal opinion in the context of your professional life, right? I'm not saying in context of things that don't relate to your professional life. Like that's different,
Hmm.
right? So that's the question and that you have to ask yourself. And if you've suppressed yourself, what does that mean in relationship to your likelihood to have experienced corporate trauma, or if you are experiencing corporate trauma, or if you're vulnerable
Hmm.
to experience it at some point in the future. So the second question, Rob, you did a good job on that first one, bro.
Ha, ha, ha. And I know we're gonna keep these a little. I'm gonna keep these answers a little shorter. Go ahead. I
No,
know
we
these.
good, man. Look, hey,
Okay.
it's got to come out. Have you ever felt compelled to take the lead at or leave, aka quit your job due to toxic working conditions and or a poor company culture? So toxic work conditions or a poor company culture. This is really, that question is designed to have people assess have their fight or flight mechanism been triggered at work due to toxicity or poor culture? Can't hear you.
Am I back?
Yeah, you back.
I don't know if toxicity really, if that's something that has ever had me say I got to get up out of here. So I'll say no to that one. Culture, yes.
But did you feel like did toxicity ever make you feel like, yo, I gotta take the lead, man, fall on the knife and advocate for myself and indirectly advocate for other people?
Yes, but that also was bred from the culture that was there.
So say
So for
more.
me, because culture breeds habits,
Got you.
right? The culture that we put in place is based on things that on our beliefs, right?
Right.
We believe it, then it becomes a part of the culture. We perpetuate that culture and it becomes habits, right? So you look at it and the situations that are toxic, they become toxic over time.
Yep.
So it's one of those situations where you're sitting there, it's like, man, this place, it's not right, right? And sometimes we can look at it and say, hey, maybe there's a way that we can do something about it.
Right.
There is, if you can fix the culture,
Mm.
right? Because it's very often same way when you're not feeling well.
Right.
You could take care of the fever, right, with the Tylenol,
Yep.
but if you don't take care of the reason, if you can decrease the fever with the Tylenol,
Right.
but why are you sick? Why do you
Right.
have a fever?
Right.
So ultimately, if you can't take care of the problem, taking care of the symptom just increases the amount of days that you can continue to push forward. But at some point in time, the kettle gonna blow,
Right. Right.
you know? So it's that situation. So when I marry them together, then yes and yes, I
Got you.
have.
So the question that I would like for you and our audience to consider is how is it even possible to
Hmm.
bring people into a situation, whether they're newly hired or they've been there
Hmm.
already, that they are not aligned with the culture or not aligned with how things are operating, um, to the point where they're now toxic? How is that even possible? Right. So this gets to the fundamentals of what our current corporate industrial complex, the traditional setup of it, and how it allows toxicity or poor culture to exist, right? Because poor culture, right, is subjective, right? I might love it, you might not like it.
Hmm.
But how are you there? How did you get in if the culture don't align with you? Like,
Hmm.
so what took place during the interview process? What's going on during the evaluation sessions, right? What kind of questions are being asked, or what kind of sentiments and positions are being suppressed where now you are at somewhere where you do not want to be? What is that? That's corporate trauma. That's the pattern of behavior. You see what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
this is why these, I feel, in my opinion, my humble opinion, why these questions, are very important for people to kind of consider, past, present, or whether or not they're going to be in a position in the future to feel that way. All right, you ready for the next one? Or you got
Yeah,
something
yeah,
else?
yeah.
All
No,
right, all
no,
right,
no.
all right. So, third question: Do you, or have you ever, or have you noticed about yourself struggling with the same personality types in the workplace, regardless of where you work, when you work, and how long you worked there? It's always, maybe you are annoyed by introverts or exhibitionists, right? Like, or you might not see eye to eye with type A personalities, right? Like,
Mhm.
is it a specific personality type that you've acknowledged or observed over time? You don't have to say which one, but is there a particular? I know the question for me is yes. There's a certain personality type I always struggle with.
Yeah. You know, I think there's personality types that struggle with me.
Ah,
Because like, what's the best way to say it? I'm not too concerned about other people. I just want you to do well.
right.
I struggle with people who want to encroach on my space. So if you want or you feel like you need me to be someone different for you to be happy, we're going to have an issue, right? Because in that regard, I may be more like an old dog who I'll learn new tricks, but I don't want to be a young dog. And sometimes people need and want you sometimes to be something different so that they can have an easier road.
Yes,
And
that's a
unless I decide, meaning that it was probably my idea
yep.
to adjust, then that means I'm not adjusting. It's
Right,
on you to adjust
right,
because it's something that you need. Because
right,
that's what I do. I get around people and I'm like, I'm not gonna make it here as long as I need to if I move like this. And
right.
if it's within my bandwidth,
Mm-hmm.
right, I start off every new role saying, I ain't gonna have my normal jokes. I ain't gonna come up in here, be like all personality and be like running the room, even if I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna go up in that piece and I'm gonna learn and I'm gonna pay attention and I'm gonna be quiet and it's not gonna be about jokes. And then like hour number two, day number one, I done
Rob,
popped off.
popped
I
off
done popped
already.
off. I done popped off. Right?
Yes.
And so it's one of those situations where people will see me on the podcast and they be like, I wonder if he's like that all like almost everywhere you go. Like to be honest with you, it's either yes or I'm quiet. And
Right.
quiet just means that it's not the place because if I'm my normal self, then I'm making it about me. And I understand that where we are today isn't about me.
Right.
But if I can flex, I'm flexing. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're gonna get this smoke. Like
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
gonna get this
yeah.
smoke.
Which
Hmm.
which begs the question. There are so many different types of personalities
Hmm.
out there in people, which are the results of individual thinking, right? Or
Hmm.
people don't think like everybody else. Like
Hmm.
there's so many different ways to see one situation. So the question that begs is there really, what is the reason why somebody like me with my tenure in the corporate industrial complex, how can I get away with struggling with one particular or more personality type, regardless of space, time, and tenure? Like, what is it about the corporate industrial complex that did not expect for me to do the work in order to help understand and recognize this thing about you and how you interact with this particular personality
Hmm.
type and help me to reframe that and deal with that, because there's so many different types of people out there, right? It's so many different ways of thinking. It's not possible for
Hmm.
you to be successful and then still hold on to something that is so trivial, which is a
Hmm.
personality type, right? So, that's one of the things that I ask people, because
Hmm.
it's like the corporate industrial complex sets these traps. You know what I'm saying? You struggle with
uh,
people who plan and need to plan ahead and need information, and you're way more spontaneous than that, and because y'all don't think the same
hmm.
way, you got an issue with that person as if your way of thinking is the only way to think. Like,
Hmm.
why hasn't the corporate industrial complex forced me to become more flexible,
Hmm.
versatile, or hybrid in my thinking? What is it?
But I believe that the other way to kind of look at it is why is the other person's way of doing things more appreciated than yours? Right? So you being more spontaneous,
Right.
similar to me,
Right.
isn't a negative, especially if the person who's willing to plan understands that when they're going to struggle, we're going to thrive,
And vice versa.
and vice versa.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, "Oh, he can't plan it, he's horrible at planning," you say, "Hey, let me cover him in his weak moments, and he'll cover me in my weak moments." Because, well, let's be honest, many people who plan, when the fire breaks out, they be in there running like crazy, like they had nothing to do with planning. They're like, "Ah, it's a fire!
I didn't plan for
Somebody,
no fire right
I
now.
didn't plan for a fire." And then you and I are like, all right, calm down. What you mean, calm down? I planned. Ah, 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 ah. Where's my plan? Right.
Right.
So, and then next thing you know, your ability to be spontaneous really turns into you being able to be a firefighter in that moment.
Mm.
And if people learn to appreciate and say, "Hey, let's work together as much as we can," you drive the idea of structure. I'll add the pieces that I believe to make sense. You execute on that end, but then I can also now execute from the plan. You know what I mean? And then it it does.
It seems like common sense, bro. Like, but there's something about this corporate industrial complex that at a certain level
Hmm.
celebrates the conflict that happens in differences, and it's like only the strong will survive, right? See, it's almost, and I'm gonna say something crazy outside the box, and then I'm gonna move on to the next question, right?
Uh huh.
Like some organizations at certain times in their business um cycle, you
Hmm.
know, you start, you incline, you plateau, and you decline, right? That's the
Hmm.
business 101, right? But depending on you where the business is in the business cycle and the external marketplace and the environment
Hmm.
with competitors and all that stuff out there, like there's a time where you probably might need two CEOs. You might not name you can't, you don't necessarily have to title it that way. What I'm
Yeah.
saying, like you might need two people leading the organization that balance each
Hmm.
other, that speaks to the
Hmm.
circumstances that the organization need to get through in order to
Correct.
be successful on the other side. But no, we need
Hmm.
a we need a sales driven person. No, we need a people person in leadership. No, we
Mm.
need a process person in leadership. No, we need a pro, like no. You probably need a little bit of all of that. So
Hmm.
who do you have that can pull all that together? Is it one
That's a great
person
point.
or is it two? Right? Why does it have to be your way or no way? Right? Just
That's a
some
great
food for
point.
thought. Just some food for thought. All right.
Yeah.
Next indicator
Huh.
question. Are you personally, and listen carefully, are you personally connected to your work or is it just a job? That question is a little deeper than it sounds. Are you personally connected to your work or is it just a job? For example, if I'm a sanitation worker, right?
Hmm.
And I work 4 hours a day, I make $85,000 a year in a major
Hmm.
metropolitan city. Am I just happy the fact that I have a uh, a a great job? I mean, a great workable salary over the livable wages expectations for the area that I live in, or am
Mm.
I personally connected to keeping my neighborhood clean? Like I'm a part of that process, and I want to be, and I may be starting out hanging off the back of this truck, but I have a plan for myself to get up into the operational offices and
Hmm.
being a civil engineer or something like that around
Hmm.
leading. major campaigns of, sanitation logistics or whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
So are you personally connected, or was it just a job? I like the fact that I work 4 hours a day and I get paid for eight, and I can live comfortably.
To be honest with you, I don't think I've ever been somewhere and it was just going to be a job, except maybe the first time I worked at a bank,
Mm,
right? And it hit me day one, where I was like, man, if that's how I got to do that to be successful, nah, that's not going to work, right? But
yep.
all of the other roles, no matter how much I was being paid, or no matter what the task was, the the things we were doing were the most important piece. The people we were impacting, I should say, let me say that. The people who we were impacting were the biggest piece. And at any point in time when I look at it differently, I gotta go. Like I'm big on that. Like I would tell people at any point in time,
Yeah.
if the foundation of the business, if the core concept of the business, if the core actions of the business don't vibe, don't sit well, don't mesh with who you are,
Mm-hmm.
don't sit there and be a disgruntled person. Don't sit there and take up an opportunity for someone else. It's your job to leave so that you can take have your heart in the place that you give so much time to. And I
That's
don't
a fact.
believe that the workplace looks at it like that. If
Right.
people should have more true conversations with staff, with employees, with team members, and say, "Hey, is this a place like not the place, right? Because the place we could possibly figure out the culture,
Right.
right? And if the culture doesn't fit for you, that's another reason to leave.
Right.
But if the things that we do don't excite you,
Mm. Don't get
right,
you up
then
in the
it's
morning.
if it don't get you up in the morning, then it's time to leave. Now, sometimes you can go in, and the things that the company does aren't exciting to you, but the role that you have within the company is the exciting piece.
Right. Right.
You might not be a big fan of flipping burgers. You don't flip burgers though. Your job, better yet, let me use a better one. You might not be a fan of frying chicken
Mm-hmm.
or even eating chicken, but your job is to train team members at Chick-fil-A about culture.
And
And I
customer
know you're very
service.
I know you don't eat chicken. So
Right.
you've probably
Every
never
now and
gone to
then.
Chick-fil-A. But if you've gone to Chick-fil-A,
Right.
this place, no matter what people believe, like how they feel about the owner, all that other stuff, but it is rare. And I think I've only been to one Chick-fil-A that didn't stand up to the test.
Mm.
But it is rare that you go into a Chick-fil-A and they're like Burger King, McDonald's, or maybe even Wendy's. And that is no shot at them,
Right.
but the level of customer service, and
It's
to be
different.
clear,
It's
and to
different.
be clear, I want people to really understand. And most of the ones that I've gone to have the same type of people. This isn't old where you go to Chick-fil-A and everybody there that works there is either white or Spanish or Asian. And then when you go to McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, KFC, or whatever the case may be, they're black. It's not that.
Right.
I've been to KFCs and everybody black. I mean,
Right.
I've been to Chick-fil-A and the folks in there are black.
Right.
And they operate at a higher level than
It's the
other folks who are in customer service.
it's
It
the
is like
culture.
astounding. It is the
It's
culture.
it's the culture.
Yes.
Right.
They
And
frying
right.
yes,
So to
sir.
your point,
Yes,
you
sir.
may not even eat
Hmm.
chicken. You may be excited about, yo, I get to come to this place and help to create something that does a service or sells a good that makes other people's lives easier in
Hmm.
its delivery, right? It could be just as simple as that. And if you're on the opposite side of that, right, where maybe you're hearing this question and you've never or you haven't answered this question at all or in a long time, and you
Mm.
like, yo, man, it's just a job for me. And coming to that realization does not mean you have to make a rash decision right now. It's
Mhm.
just important for you to make that determination for yourself, right? Because it's important because the corporate industrial complex, right, won't lead you to this question with intentionality. This is something that you
Mhm.
either have to experience through circumstances and you're forced to ask yourself this question, or
Mhm.
you meet somebody like myself or Rob, and we force you to answer this question. We strong arm you, right? Last question,
Mhm.
Rob. Last question.
Yep.
Do you or have you ever felt like you have had to change your persona significantly while at work? Now, notice this is not have you changed, right? Because I know the answer. I know the answer to that question, right? But the question is, have you ever felt like, yo, if I change my persona, I could probably be a little bit more successful, a little quicker. Now, Rob would never do anything like that, but that doesn't mean that you haven't come to the realization that changing that persona a little bit may get you somewhere. Has that ever crossed your mind? Have you ever felt like it would have been productive to do that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If I could just be a yes man, if I could just be a yes man, then I'd be good to go. Because I don't, I have not been somewhere. I haven't been somewhere, and no matter at what level that people don't like, show, and love Rob Felder. It doesn't matter the level. Now, granted, the emotions can be either or. You either don't, you just don't like. You don't feel that dude Rob. Something about that cat. He swear he know everything. He walk up in here like he the CEO, and he at the bottom of the totem pole. But then he be in these conversations with the CEO like they both CEOs,
Right,
right?
right.
So it's that situation where I realized that if I could probably tone it down
Mm,
some, yes.
yep.
But to be honest with you,
You're not gonna do that.
bruh, the sun don't know how to the sun don't know how to shine less.
I'm
I
not
don't
saying.
know.
I'm
No, I'm
not
just
saying.
saying. I want
Uh,
people to really understand that. I don't know. To be honest with
hey,
you, only way for me to shine less is not to do just to sit here.
hey,
I
good
have to
people.
sit like that.
Let's reassure Rob. We're not. He don't have to do that. I knew this question was gonna get you. I knew it was gonna get you get your blood boiling. You know what I'm saying? But no, I appreciate the candor in your answer, right? Even though I knew which way you, because I know you, I knew which way. I knew what the answer to that question would be in actuality. But the key here is, man, do people feel like they got to change their persona, and why? Why does the corporate industrial complex, right,
Mhm.
make anybody feel that they have to change their persona, right? There's something for everybody to go do and be themselves. There's
Mhm.
something, right? Or I guess, let me see, in a perfect world, there's somewhere for everybody to go and be themselves, right? But when we specifically talk about the corporate industrial complex,
Mhm.
uh, right? Corporate means a single entity legal of multiple people that are
Mhm.
legally recognized as one entity, right? So
Mhm.
yes, you have to be aligned with what that is, or you should be
Mhm.
aligned with what that is, because you have signed on to be recognized as a group of individuals as one entity. But trauma is the pattern of behavior through negative experiences that provide you with no room to create a coping mechanism to get through that experience, right? Will
Mhm.
negative things happen? Yes. Will bad, quote unquote, bad things happen? Yes. But the trauma part is
Mhm.
I don't have a coping mechanism for it. Yeah, I had to come in and change my persona, right? Because I had to align with the culture. I had to make that
Mm-hmm.
decision. But dang, did I actually need to get fired for that? Right? Did I actually need to get set in a perpetual cycle of non-advancement because of that? Right? Am
Mm.
I is my is my development and the gap that I needed to grow and close a reason why I have to process these negative experiences to the point where now I'm a caricature of myself, right? This is where that particular
Mm-hmm.
question is pointed and directed to analyze and have people kind of self-assess. Um, because at the end of the day, when you really start to, throw away the fluff, like
Mm-hmm.
there's really no good reason, right? In obviously normal circumstances for you to totally change your persona. Why? Because it really ain't possible. I tell people all the time, especially in the interview process, Rob, Jamal, what should I do? I'm nervous. I always tell them, be yourself because who you are is going to come out anyway. And the worst thing you want to do is to pretend to be somebody else or change your persona for the sake of an interview to get some employment or to
Mm-hmm.
gain a client if you're an entrepreneur, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then later on down the line, you jump all out your shirt. You know what I'm saying? The real Jamal show up. Now you've just hurt your brand and you've come off as disingenuous and not authentic. So be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what
Be
I'm saying?
yourself. Be yourself. And the crazy thing more, and I guess I know I'll end it with this piece. That may be more the reason why more people are leaving the workplace,
Right.
right? Because they realize that being themselves is more important, and the places that they are or were working at aren't for them, don't make sense with who they are, and they either have found or they're searching for places that are more aligned. And if we could truly hold more companies accountable to truly reflect what the culture is like within their organizations, then things would be so much better off. So people have to do a better job, and companies have to do a better job of being realistic about what they're bringing to the table.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. Well, we're not going to tell you how you may have scored on these questions, right?
Hmm.
How it may point to your vulnerability to corporate trauma, or if it indicates that you are experiencing corporate trauma. We not You got to come back and hear more to try to figure that out. Just remember the questions and think about the things that come up for you from the simple fact that these questions were asked or you were exposed to these questions
Hmm.
tonight, because it's very important. As my good friend Robert always said, don't leave your heart at home, right? And you have to connect with yourself in order to be the best professional that you can develop into.
Hmm.
Leaving yourself out of that equation for the sake of a company culture, for the sake of suppressing uh, opinions and professional positions, for the sake of ignoring the triggering of your fight or
Hmm.
flight mechanism, for the sake of trying to figure out whether your persona is acceptable, right? And for the sake of really trying to figure out, are you personally connected to the work or is it just a job? Like these things are important. It sound, you know, warm and fuzzy and philosophical and not as objective as I got to earn a living. I got to get
Hmm.
that, what I'm saying, that paycheck got to hit every 2 weeks, right? Um, or none of this stuff you talking about, Jamal, is that important in comparison to that. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised,
Hmm.
right? If you are on the other side of that equation. Because these things that we talked about impact.
Yes, they do.
impact the organizations that you are doing the work on behalf of, because you know business is personal. I'm sorry. Business might be
Hmm.
cold, it may be cut and dry, but you
Hmm.
can't take the people or the person out of the business, because at the beginning, middle, and end of anything that we do business wise, Rob, there are people involved and associated with it. And if not, it's people doing the work. So,
Hmm.
um, man, good
Great point.
conversation. Good
Great
conversation.
point.
Man, I'll leave you with the last word and we can land this plane.
You gonna give me another last word?
Oh,
Okay.
you all
I'm
right? That was it.
Yeah, I took my last word first.
All right.
Listen, man,
Well,
you know what though? Listen, love yourself,
yep.
love your family, and there's nothing wrong with loving what you do.
Nothing wrong at all, man.
And I saw a meme from earlier where it talked about Cat Williams, and it said that the business.
You on mute. You on mute now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I went dead.
Oh, okay.
Um, at the end of the day, I done lost my whole train of thought,
You was
right?
talking about Cat Williams. You was making a point about
And
Cat
he
Williams.
said, "You've been fooled to think that there's 24 hours in a day." And he said, "There's 12 hours in a day, and there's 12 hours at night." He said, "But if you," he said, he said, "But if you look, if you actually looked at time that way, you might not give 8 hours of your day to go to work,
Beautiful.
right? Because ultimately, you got 8 hours of sleep, then you're
Uh-huh.
going to work for 8 hours, you're traveling to work, so you really get 2 hours of daytime, maybe, to yourself.
Mm,
So, wherever you're going, I hope that you realize that it's okay to look for love in these places. And when I say love in these places, I'm talking about being fulfilled with what you're doing
right,
at these places and saying, hey, if that's not what I'm finding, then I gotta go.
right. Eventually.
Mm-hmm.
It eventually you're gonna have to go, or the place is gonna spit you out. Um, because we're not talking about love, the romantic love.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about, like Rob said, that fulfillment, right? That thing that makes you become close to who you actually are and doing and fulfilling the purpose that you have been given to fulfill. So
Mm-hmm.
great conversation, man. I'm so glad everybody was able to join us this evening. Make sure you
Yes.
put your thoughts, your comments, your likes, even your dislikes in the
Mm-hmm.
chat. Um, and shout out to you for hanging with us. This is, what is this, episode 19, Rob?
I believe so.
This is episode 19, bro. And we got some more stuff coming. And remember, we're not gonna tell you whether or not you got that corporate trauma based on how you answered these questions that we talked about today. You're gonna have to continue to come back and listen and make that determination for yourself.
Mm.
Um, but remember, corporate trauma is a sneaky passive trauma that will creep up on you. And when it does, it's time.
To level up.
Have a great, great evening. Rob, till we get up on this again, have a blessed
You too,
and
bro.
safe. Be blessed, be safe, and we'll see y'all again later.
Yes.